I found my husband and sister having an affair in the kitchen I paid to renovate, with her making excuses like our mother once did for her actions. I ran. I left everything behind, my home, my life, the horror of what Lisa did. But no matter how far I went, I could never truly escape her. The nightmares followed me. The knocking at my door. The whispers outside my window. But it wasn't until the package arrived that I realized Lisa wasn't done with me. Inside was an ultrasound. And a single note, written in her familiar, looping handwriting, "He's yours now, Mommy." I tried to ignore it. I tried to forget. But Lisa always finds a way. And when I finally opened the door, when I finally stepped into that house, I saw him. A baby. A real baby. "Mine," she said. "A gift. A second chance. A new family." But Lisa doesn't give gifts. Lisa doesn't let go. And as I held him in my arms, I knew. This wasn't the end. She's still out there. And she'll always come back. Because some nightmares don't stop when you wake up. They knock at your door at 2:13 a.m. and whisper from just outside the window, "Aren't you going to check on our son?" The house smelled wrong. It wasn't the usual scent of Mark's cologne, the faint trace of laundry detergent, or the lingering warmth of the lavender candle she always lit before leaving on business trips. No, this was something else. A thick, heavy mixture of wine, vanilla, and something too intimate to ignore. A scent that didn't belong. Her stomach tightened. She hadn't told Mark she was coming home early. It was supposed to be a surprise. She even picked up his favorite bourbon from the airport, imagining the way he'd pull her into his arms, laugh, and tell her how much he missed her. But something about the air in the house told her that Mark wasn't missing her. Not at all. Then, she heard it. A giggle. Soft. Familiar. Too familiar. Sophia's heart stopped. It came from the kitchen. The kitchen she spent months renovating. The kitchen she paid for. Every inch of it, the marble countertops, the imported Italian backsplash, the pendant lights she agonized over, was hers. She walked in, still holding the bourbon, her pulse hammering so hard in her ears she could barely hear herself breathe. And there they were. Lisa. Mark. Her husband standing between her sister's legs. His hands gripping her waist as she perched on the very countertop Sophia designed. Lisa's head was tilted back, her lips wet, laughing, her hands resting casually on Mark's shoulders like this was just some harmless conversation. Sophia felt her body shut down. She couldn't move. Couldn't breathe. Mark saw her first. His entire body went rigid. His face drained of color so fast it was almost comical, almost. He took half a step back, his hands dropping away from Lisa's hips like he could somehow undo what she had just seen. Lisa turned next. Slowly. Too slowly. Her mouth was still parted, her lip gloss smudged. And when she saw Sophia, she didn't gasp. Didn't panic. She just blinked. Then, she smiled. "Soph, it's not what it looks like." The words hit like a slap. Not what it looks like. She wanted to scream. Wanted to laugh. Wanted to rip the entire house apart with her bare hands. Instead, she stared. Because Lisa always did this. When they were kids, she stole money from their mom's purse. And when she was caught. It's not what it looks like. When she crashed Sophia's car in college. It's not what it looks like. When she slept with Sophia's first boyfriend. It's not what it looks like. And now, history was repeating itself. Only this time, Lisa wasn't some reckless teenager. This time, she was perched on Sophia's kitchen counter, with her husband between her legs. Mark tried to speak. Soph, But she didn't want to hear it. Her hand tightened around the bottle of bourbon. She could see it so clearly, smashing it against the edge of the counter, watching the glass shatter, watching the whiskey spill like blood. She wondered how long it had been going on. Months? Years? Had they laughed about her behind her back? Had they sat at her dining table, eating the meals she cooked, pretending to be family while they were already doing this? Something inside her cracked. Not her voice. Not her tears. Something deeper. She took a step back, still gripping the bourbon bottle so tightly her knuckles turned white. Lisa swung her legs off the counter like she had every right to be comfortable here, smoothing her dress as if nothing had happened. "Soph," she said, almost gently, "you don't have to be so dramatic." And that was when Sophia finally felt it. Not sadness. Not heartbreak. Pure, blinding rage. Sophia hadn't planned on opening the door. She had ignored Lisa's texts, her calls, the cheerful voice messages that sounded so normal that it made her stomach churn. Lisa was always good at that, pretending things hadn't happened, rewriting reality until she believed her own lies. So when Lisa showed up, standing at her doorstep like she had every right to be there, Sophia nearly slammed the door in her face. But she didn't. Maybe it was curiosity. Maybe it was the years of conditioning, the way Lisa always made herself unavoidable, the way she forced herself into situations, refusing to be ignored until Sophia caved. So instead of telling her to go to hell, Sophia stepped aside and let her in. Lisa walked into her house, her sanctuary, like it was a casual Sunday brunch. She moved through the kitchen, the same kitchen Sophia had caught her in less than 24 hours ago, grabbed a mug from the shelf, and started making tea. Sophia stood in the doorway, watching, her hands clenched into fists. Lisa hummed to herself, dropped a tea bag into the steaming water, and settled onto the couch, tucking her legs beneath her. She looked up at Sophia and grinned. "Okay," she said, exhaling dramatically, "so are we gonna talk about this, or are you just gonna keep staring at me like that?" Sophia said nothing. Lisa rolled her eyes. "God, you're so tense. You always overreact." She took a sip of tea. "Look, I get it. You're upset. But you really shouldn't be making such a big deal out of this." Sophia's vision blurred at the edges. Overreacting. Making a big deal. She had heard this exact conversation before. When Lisa stole money from their mother's purse. "I was gonna pay it back." When Lisa crashed Sophia's car in college. "I was just borrowing it." When Lisa slept with Sophia's first boyfriend. "It just happened." Lisa always had an excuse. Lisa was never at fault. And here she was, doing it again. Sophia inhaled slowly. "You were in my kitchen," she said, her voice low, controlled, deadly. "With my husband." Lisa shrugged, blowing on her tea like they were talking about the weather. "Okay, yeah, but it wasn't, like, a big thing, Soph," she said. "It wasn't like we planned it or whatever. It just," she snapped her fingers. "Happened." Sophia's nails dug into her palms. "Happened." "You were on my countertops," Sophia hissed. Lisa laughed. Laughed. "Oh my God, Soph, it's not like we defiled a church or something." She shook her head, setting her mug down. "You've always been so dramatic about stuff like this." Sophia's breath hitched. The words stabbed through her. Not because they hurt. But because they sounded so familiar. She had heard them before. Not from Lisa. From their mother. Sophia felt something cold crawl up her spine. Lisa was still talking, still rambling on about how Sophia was being unfair, about how Mark was just a man, you know how men are. And Sophia saw it. The same flippant smirk, the same careless cruelty, the same way she twisted reality to make herself the victim. Lisa wasn't just like their mother. Lisa had become her. Lisa must have seen something change in Sophia's face because her smug little smile curled into something worse. Something satisfied. And then, she tilted her head, watching Sophia the way a cat watches a dying bird. You're mad because I remind you of Mom, aren't you? Sophia flinched. Because Lisa was right. Mark shows up at the house like he still belongs there. Like he still has the right to walk through the front door, sit at her dining table, and expect her to listen to him. Sophia doesn't say a word when he steps inside. She doesn't offer him coffee, doesn't ask if he wants water, doesn't acknowledge the way he lingers in the doorway like a stray dog waiting to be fed. Instead, she watches. He looks different. Nervous. Smaller. Like he realizes, maybe for the first time, that he's not in control anymore. He clears his throat and sits down at the table, clasping his hands like he's about to lead a prayer. It didn't mean anything, he says, his voice too soft, too rehearsed. Like he practiced it in the mirror before coming over. Like he thought this was going to work. Sophia grips the edge of the table. Then why were you doing it in my house? Her voice is calm, too calm. Cold. Detached. My kitchen? On my countertops? Mark exhales sharply. His fake remorse cracks for just a second, and something uglier seeps through. Annoyance. Like she's being difficult for not accepting his apology. You were gone so much, he mutters, running a hand through his hair. You never made time for us. Something in her snaps. She barely hears the chair scrape against the floor as she stands, barely registers the pounding in her ears, the heat rising in her chest. Gaslighting. Blame shifting. Making his betrayal her fault. She knows exactly what this is. She knows this game. She played it with her mother. She played it with Lisa. And now, Mark wants her to sit here, nod her head, swallow the blame like it's hers to carry. But she's not that woman anymore. She laughs. A deep, dark, twisted sound. Mark flinches. Because she's not crying anymore. Sophia finds the package on her doorstep just after sunrise. At first, she assumes it's something she ordered, maybe an automatic reorder of vitamins, or a new set of kitchen towels. But when she picks it up, she feels it. The weight is off. Too heavy in the center, too lopsided for anything normal. And then she sees the handwriting. It's scrawled across a folded note taped to the top, the same lazy, looping cursive she's known since childhood. For my favorite sister. No hard feelings. Sophia's breath catches. Lisa. Her fingers tremble as she peels back the wrapping paper, revealing a plain white box beneath. No shipping label. No return address. Like it was hand-delivered. Every instinct in her body screams at her not to open it. She does anyway. Inside is a Tupperware container. The plastic is cloudy, condensation pooling at the edges, the lid snapped tightly shut. A dull, wet thudding sound comes from inside as she shifts it slightly in her hands. Something heavy. Something dense. Sophia pops the lid. And immediately gags. The smell punches her first, a thick, rancid wave of decay, something foul and wet and sour. She stumbles back, nearly dropping the container as bile rises in her throat. Inside, lying in a puddle of dark, congealed blood, is a slab of raw, rotting meat. No. Not meat. A pig's heart. A whole, disgusting, decomposing pig's heart, veins still attached, the tissue beginning to turn a sickly shade of green at the edges. Sophia slaps a hand over her mouth. Her body revolts, her stomach heaving violently. But then, she sees it. Nestled at the bottom of the container, half submerged in the thick, clotting blood, is something small and pale. A pearl earring. Sophia stares. Her mind races, scrambling, trying to make sense of something that cannot be made sense of. She knows this earring. Because she saw it 2 days ago. On Lisa. On Lisa's ear, as she sat on Sophia's kitchen counter, with Mark standing between her legs. Sophia's knees buckle. The container slips from her grasp, hitting the floor with a wet slap. The lid pops off, sending blood splattering across the tile, streaking her bare feet, her calves. She stumbles backward, slamming into the counter, her stomach churning. Her hands shake as she grips the sink for balance. She can't stop looking at it. The heart. The rotting, bloodied heart. The earring. Lisa's earring. It's a message. A warning. A game. Lisa is playing a game. And she's just getting started. The call comes at 2:13 a.m. Sophia wakes up with a start, the harsh glow of her phone screen cutting through the darkness. Lisa. Her name sits there like a loaded gun, like the last few days haven't already been a descent into something rotten and unspeakable. For a moment, Sophia considers ignoring it. She should ignore it. But some sick, morbid instinct makes her swipe to answer. At first, there's only breathing. Soft. Measured. The kind of silence that stretches just long enough to make the skin crawl. Then, Lisa speaks. I'm pregnant. Sophia's blood turns to ice. Lisa's voice is shaky, fake fragile, like she's forcing herself to sound unsure, vulnerable. Like she's enjoying this. Sophia's fingers go numb. The phone slips from her grasp, hits the floor with a dull thud. She barely notices. The whole world tilts beneath her, the walls closing in, the air thick and suffocating. Her stomach lurches, nausea curling up her throat like a wave of poison. For a moment, everything is silent. The only sound is the dull ringing in her ears, the sharp rasp of her own breath. Then, slowly, she picks up the phone again. Her voice is barely steady. Whose is it? A pause. Then, softly. Mark's. Sophia stops breathing. It feels like her ribs have been cracked open, like something has reached into her chest and torn her apart from the inside. Mark. Her husband. Her sister. Their baby. Her vision blurs. She grips the edge of the mattress so hard her nails dig into the fabric. Lisa exhales, the sound mocking now. And then, with a voice so sweet it makes Sophia's teeth ache. I guess that makes me family for real now, huh? And then she hangs up. Sophia wakes to the sound of something soft, deliberate, wrong. A shuffle outside. A barely there scrape. The kind of sound that shouldn't be there at all, especially not in the middle of the night. Her heart jolts to life. She moves on instinct, reaching for the knife on her nightstand, the one she started keeping there after the pig heart, after the earring, after everything. Her fingers grasp at nothing. It's gone. Her pulse slams in her ears. The room suddenly feels too small, too hot. She sits up, her breath caught in her throat, listening. There. A creak outside the bedroom door. Footsteps. Slow. Measured. Close. Then, a soft, rhythmic knock. And Lisa's voice. Soph, are you awake? Sing-song. Sweet. Like a sister waking her up for Christmas morning. Like she isn't standing on the other side of the door with a knife. Sophia stops breathing. Her fingers dig into the bedsheets, white-knuckled, frozen. Lisa hums softly. Then, the doorknob turns. Sophia wakes with her heart still hammering, her skin sticky with sweat, her throat raw from where she had swallowed her own screams the night before. Lisa had been there. Inside the house. Sophia had stayed awake until the first gray light of morning crept through the blinds, clutching a heavy lamp as her only weapon. She had waited, heart thudding in her ears, until the silence stretched long enough to mean that Lisa was gone. But the knife was still missing. She forces herself up, legs unsteady beneath her as she moves through the house. Everything looks normal. Too normal. Like Lisa had never been here. Like last night was some fevered hallucination. But Sophia knows better. She moves into the kitchen, intending to pour herself a cup of coffee, to force normalcy back into her shaking hands, but the moment she steps onto the tiles, she stops cold. Her foot sticks. A sound. A faint, wet peeling as she lifts it. Her stomach drops. She looks down. There, smeared across the white tiles in uneven dark streaks, is blood. Not dried. Fresh. Sticky. Real. A trail. Leading toward the fridge. Her breath catches. No. Her body locks up, but her feet move anyway, dragging her forward, heart slamming in her ribs. She grips the refrigerator handle, pulse pounding in her skull. She doesn't want to open it. She knows what's inside. But she does. The cold air whooshes against her face, and at first, it looks normal. Milk. Eggs. Leftovers. Everything exactly as it should be. Except for the plastic bag on the middle shelf. Sophia stares at it. It's a grocery bag, tied in a loose knot at the top. Soggy. The bottom dark with leaking blood. She forces herself to reach forward. Her fingers tremble as they brush the plastic. It's wet. Something inside her mind is screaming at her to stop, to walk away, to get in the car and drive and never look back. But her body isn't listening. She unties the knot. Pulls the bag open. And there it is. A severed hand. Pale. Stiff. The fingers curled slightly inward like it had died mid-reach. The wrist jagged, the torn flesh brutal and uneven, as if it had been hacked off sloppily, impatiently. And on the ring finger. Mark's wedding ring. Sophia's vision blurs. The edges of the room darken. A choked sound claws its way up her throat, something between a gasp and a sob. She stumbles back, slamming into the counter. The kitchen tilts around her. Mark. Mark is dead. And Lisa. Lisa did this. Sophia's stomach heaves. She barely makes it to the sink before she's retching. Her hands grip the edges of the counter, knuckles white, body shaking. Lisa had been here last night. And now, Mark is gone. Her breath shudders. A new thought slithers into her mind. Lisa left this for her to find. She wanted Sophia to see it. To know. To understand that this wasn't just a game anymore. This was a message. And Sophia knows exactly what it's saying. You're next. Sophia leaves. She doesn't pack everything. She doesn't carefully fold clothes into a suitcase or neatly label moving boxes. She doesn't even take the coffee maker she loves, the one she and Mark had picked out together when they first moved in. Because this isn't moving out. This is escaping. She throws what she can into a duffel bag and drives. Doesn't tell anyone. Doesn't leave a note. She just gets in the car and goes. The house, the scene of everything, gets smaller in the rearview mirror, shrinking into a distant shape, then nothing at all. But the feeling stays. The rotting weight of Lisa's presence. The fact that Mark's hand, his severed, bloodied hand, had been in her fridge like leftovers. She still sees it when she closes her eyes. The curve of the fingers. The ridges of the wedding band. The way the flesh had turned that pale, sickly shade. She tells herself that leaving will fix it. That Lisa doesn't know where she's going. That Lisa won't find her. But Sophia knows better than that. Lisa always finds a way. The nightmares start immediately. Some nights, it's Mark's hand, reaching for her, grabbing at her throat. Other nights, it's Lisa, standing in the kitchen, barefoot, humming as she slices raw meat on the counter. Sophia tries to convince herself that she's free, that Lisa is just a shadow in her mind now, not something real, not something waiting for her in the dark. But then the package arrives. It happens late at night. A knock. Soft. Just 3 taps. She almost doesn't hear it. But when she does, every inch of her locks up. She doesn't move right away. She just sits there, staring at the door, her heartbeat hammering against her ribs. No one knows where she is. No one should be knocking. But the knock comes again. 3 taps. Rhythmic. Slowly, with shaking hands, she moves toward the door. She doesn't open it. Instead, she peers through the peephole, expecting, dreading, to see Lisa standing there. But there's no one. Just a small, plain package sitting on the doormat. Her hands tremble as she unlatches the door. She hesitates, then steps out, grabs the box, and slams the door shut. No return address. No name. Just a small, unmarked package. She carries it to the kitchen, places it on the counter, and just stares at it. For a long moment, she doesn't move. Her body is screaming at her to burn it, throw it away, don't open it. But she already knows. She already knows. She peels back the tape, slowly, carefully, like it might explode. Inside is an ultrasound picture. The grainy black and white image is unmistakable. A baby. Sophia stares, unable to breathe, unable to process what she's looking at. Her eyes drop to the bottom of the image, where something is scrawled in handwriting she knows too well. Lisa's handwriting. "He's yours now, Mommy." The room spins. Sophia stumbles back, knocking into the counter, the world tilting too fast. Lisa is gone. Mark is gone. But the baby. The baby is real. She wants to scream, wants to rip the ultrasound into 1,000 pieces, wants to throw it in the garbage, but her hands just clench around it, tightening, crushing the paper. Because this is what Lisa does. She leaves her mess behind and forces Sophia to deal with it. She always has. And now. Now she's left this. Sophia never sees Lisa again. Or the baby. She doesn't look for them. She doesn't want to. But sometimes. She wakes up in the middle of the night. Hearing soft footsteps. A baby's cry. And Lisa's whisper, just outside the window. "Aren't you going to check on our son?" Sophia moves again. Not just to a new apartment, but to a new city. A different state. Somewhere far enough that Lisa shouldn't be able to find her. And for a while, it works. The nightmares fade. The phantom footsteps stop. She forgets. Or at least, she tries to. But the ultrasound stays hidden in the bottom drawer of her nightstand. She tells herself she should burn it, shred it, throw it into the ocean, but she doesn't. Because what if it's real? What if Lisa really did have a baby? What if somewhere, out there, there's a child with Mark's face, Lisa's smile, and no one to protect them? She tries not to think about it. She builds a new life. She makes new friends. She even starts dating again, though it never lasts long. Trust is hard when you've spent your whole life being betrayed. Months pass. Then a year. And then. The knocking starts again. The first time, she tells herself it's a coincidence. Just a late-night visitor to the wrong apartment. It's soft. 3 gentle knocks. Rhythmic. Just like before. She doesn't open the door. Doesn't even look. She just sits in her bed, heart pounding, waiting for it to stop. And it does. But the next night. It happens again. This time, she checks the peephole. Nothing. No one. Just the silence pressing against the door. She tells herself it's in her head. That she's paranoid. That she's been waiting for Lisa to return for so long that her mind is making it real. Until one night, she wakes up. And hears a baby crying. She sits bolt upright, breath caught in her throat. The sound is faint, distant, almost. Like it's coming from another room. Except. She lives alone. She stares at the bedroom door, frozen, unblinking. The crying stops. Her heart hammers in her chest, breath coming in sharp, panicked bursts. She doesn't move for a long time. And then. A voice. A whisper. From just outside the window. Aren't you going to check on our son? Her entire body locks up. Lisa. The whisper is so close. Right outside. The curtains flutter slightly, like someone is standing there, waiting. Watching. Sophia's hands dig into the sheets. No. No, 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 no. She forces herself to move, to lurch out of bed, to rip open the curtains. And there's nothing. Just the empty street. The flickering glow of a street lamp. She stares at the glass, her breath fogging against it, waiting to see a reflection behind her. But there's nothing. Her ears ring with silence. But the scent lingers. Vanilla. Faint. Sickly sweet. Lisa. Sophia doesn't sleep. Not that night. Not the next. She starts seeing shadows where there are none. Starts feeling watched. The knocking comes every night now. Always at exactly 2:13 a.m. Always 3 taps. And then, always, silence. No footsteps walking away. No voices. Just waiting. Lisa is toying with her. But she won't win. She won't. Sophia won't let her. So the next night, when the knocking comes, she opens the door. The hallway is empty. A rush of cold air brushes against her skin. And then she looks down. A basket. Sitting in the doorway. A baby blanket draped over it. Sophia's stomach twists. Her breath catches. Her entire body goes cold. She doesn't want to check. She doesn't want to check. But her feet move anyway. Her fingers tremble as she lifts the edge of the blanket. Inside is a doll. Old. Worn. Its porcelain face cracked. Its dress stained red. Sophia's hands shake. She lifts the doll slowly, carefully. And then she sees it. Something tucked beneath the fabric. Something familiar. A piece of paper. An ultrasound. The same one Lisa had sent her before. But this time. Something is different. At the bottom, beneath the words, "He's yours now, Mommy." There's a date. A freshly scrawled date. Tomorrow. Sophia drops the doll. Her pulse slams against her ribs. The meaning is clear. Lisa is coming. And this time. She's bringing the baby. Sophia doesn't wait. She leaves everything, her phone, her purse, the life she tried so desperately to rebuild. She gets in her car. And she drives. No destination. No plan. Only one thought in her mind. She can't let Lisa find her. Not again. But as she speeds down the empty highway, the wind roaring outside, something flickers in her peripheral vision. A reflection in the rearview mirror. A shape in the back seat. Sophia's breath catches. She doesn't want to look. But she has to. She turns her head. And sees a baby's car seat. Sitting there. Empty. Except for a single note. In Lisa's handwriting. Don't worry. We'll find you. The car veers. Sophia barely regains control, gripping the wheel so tightly her knuckles turn white. She slams the gas pedal. Drives faster. But in the distance, through the rearview mirror, she swears. She swears she sees something on the side of the road. A woman. Standing in the headlights. Holding a baby. And smiling. Sophia keeps driving. But the baby's cries still echo in her ears. Sophia doesn't stop driving. She doesn't check the mirror again. She doesn't let herself think about the baby's seat that shouldn't be there, the note in Lisa's handwriting, the woman she saw standing on the road, the one who looked just like her sister. She tells herself she imagined it. That she's been living inside a waking nightmare for so long that reality doesn't make sense anymore. But the baby's cry still echoes in her ears. She grips the steering wheel so hard her fingers go numb. The highway stretches in front of her, empty, endless. The gaslight blinks yellow, but she doesn't stop. Not until she has to. Not until she can't run anymore. She pulls into a motel just before sunrise, hands shaking as she kills the engine. The place is the kind you don't ask questions in. A neon vacancy sign flickers against the cracked pavement, and the front desk clerk barely looks at her when she hands over the cash. The room smells like stale cigarettes and bleach. The sheets are stiff, the carpet sticky. But it's safe. For now. She locks the door. Bolts it. Checks the windows twice. Then she sits on the bed, exhales for the first time in hours, and buries her face in her hands. Lisa is still out there. And Lisa always finds her. She must fall asleep. Because when she opens her eyes, the clock says 2:13 a.m. Her chest tightens. She knows that time. She knows what comes next. The knocking. 3 taps. Soft. Rhythmic. Right outside her motel door. Her breath stops. No. No, 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 no. She doesn't move. She doesn't breathe. She just waits. The silence stretches, pressing in on her. Her ears ring with the weight of it. And then. Something slides under the door. A single sheet of paper. Her hands shake as she reaches for it, pulling it into the dim light. It's an address. And beneath it, in Lisa's familiar, looping script. Come home, Mommy. Sophia doesn't sleep. She spends the rest of the night staring at the paper. Lisa is luring her back. But for what? A final game? A final sick, twisted trick? Or something else? Something worse? She should burn it. She should rip it up and keep running. But instead, at sunrise, she gets in the car. And she drives to the address. It takes 3 hours. The roads feel unfamiliar. The trees too still. The air too thick. And then she sees it. The house. Not their childhood home. Something different. It's old. Run down. The windows are covered in grime, the paint peeling. But the front door is open. Waiting. Sophia grips the steering wheel, stomach churning. Lisa is inside. She knows it. And so is the baby. She kills the engine. Sits in silence. She could leave. She could turn the car around, press the gas, disappear forever. But then what? The knocking would follow her. The nightmares. The whispers outside the window. The baby's cry. Sophia opens the car door and steps out. And walks into the house. The air is thick with dust and something rotten. The floorboards creak beneath her feet. The walls are covered in old photos. Lisa. Lisa and their mother. Lisa, grinning at something off camera. And then. At the end of the hall. A nursery. The door is slightly ajar. Inside, a crib. Sophia's heartbeat slams in her chest. She pushes the door open. And there, lying in the crib, wrapped in a soft white blanket. A baby. Sophia freezes. He's real. He's real. He has dark hair, like Lisa's. A small face, delicate, peaceful. Sleeping. Sophia steps forward, breath caught in her throat. Her fingers tremble as she reaches down, lightly touching the edge of the blanket. And then. A voice behind her. I knew you'd come, Mommy. Sophia spins. Lisa is standing in the doorway. Smiling. She looks different. Thinner. Her eyes too bright. Like she's been waiting for this moment forever. Sophia's voice won't come. Lisa steps closer. You left, she says, tilting her head. But I fixed it. Sophia shakes her head. Fixed what? Lisa's smile widens. He's yours now, she whispers. Just like I said. Sophia's stomach turns. Lisa was never meant to be a mother. She never wanted to be. This was always the plan. She didn't keep the baby. She brought him for Sophia. To raise. To replace Mark. To start over. A new, twisted version of their family. Lisa leans in, her voice soft, sweet, poison. Say thank you, Mommy. Sophia doesn't hesitate. She grabs the lamp off the nearby dresser. And swings. The sound is dull, wet. Lisa staggers back, eyes wide. Blood trickles down her forehead. Sophia drops the lamp, chest heaving. Lisa's smile doesn't fade. Even as she stumbles, even as she sinks to the floor. You always overreact, she murmurs, eyes fluttering shut. Sophia doesn't wait. She grabs the baby. Wraps him in the blanket. And runs. She doesn't look back. Not when she hears Lisa laughing. Not when she hears her whisper. You can't run forever. She gets in the car. Drives. Fast. Faster. The baby stirs in her arms, tiny fingers curling against her shirt. She holds him tighter. Lisa is gone. For now. But sometimes, late at night. Sophia swears she still hears her. A knock at the window. 3 taps. Soft. Rhythmic. And a whisper, just outside the glass. Aren't you going to check on our son?